Welcome back to West Texas View.
We've been talking a lot about choices. Well, one of the other things that kind of was not a choice for Steve Stevens in his book When Opportunity Knocks is doing his chores or being part of the family success, whatever it took to make ends meet and to do what needed to be done. And so one of the things is that he had to help his father, who was a carpenter, do painting or whatever. So tell about how this led to a really fortuitous thing for you.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, Dad built houses. He was a very small contractor in scope. He had built
one house at a time.
One house at a time on spec basis, meaning it was not sold before he built it. He had to get it built and then sell it. So naturally, we, the boys, helped in that process, whether it was putting up sheetrock or roofing or whatever, but painting was our primary function. So we got rather proficient at painting houses, and as a result of that, a cousin who lived in Tyler contacted my brother and me and asked us to come over and paint their house. So it was summer break, so we did that. We went over to paint that house and took a friend along with us. And this friend met a girl over there, and they maintained a relationship after the house painting job was completed. Fast forward to the nearly a year, and I'm getting ready to join the Air Force with this friend. This, by the way, is the friend who talked me into being the buddy, right? Well, he wanted to go back and see his girlfriend in Tyler, and I said, I'll go with you if you'll get her to get me a date. And guess who that blind date turned out to be? Pollyanna.
Pollyanna.
Right.
And she was 2 years younger than you.
Yes.
And so that was nice that you just happened to be about to go into the military, and that would give her time to graduate from high school. But you know, one of the things that struck me is you talked about the courtship by letter.
Right.
And that you really, really got to know her, and she got to know you before you got out of the military and was ready to take the relationship to the marriage level. And it struck me that is what is missing a lot in today's relationships, is they never get to know each other before sex or marriage or something else gets in the way, and then you never go back and learn about each other.
Well, that's true. You know, in that day and time, there was no such thing as email, that sort of thing.
It was long, laborious letters.
It was all handwritten. Telephones, long-distance calls were very expensive,
and you didn't do that.
Just didn't do it at all. So it was basically letter writing, and you know, having plenty of time on my hands, and she had adequate time. We wrote virtually every day for 2 years until we ultimately got married.
And before, I want us to get back to Pollyanna in just a minute, but I have something else I want to, that I just loved, was because I was raised on Proverbs, you know, idleness is the devil's workshop, or pretty is as pretty does, or whatever it was. And so, one of the things that the idleness is the devil's workshop is something that was just drilled in my head. You just stay busy. If you don't have anything else to do, read a book. And so when you went to Alaska, let's talk about how you got your assignment in the Air Force. You were given tests, and they decided, for some reason, that you were going to be a linguist.
That's correct. Yeah. Well, you know, they give, at least at that time, and I'm sure they must still do, give all of the recruits a test to determine what your attributes might be, and fortunately they didn't make me an aircraft mechanic. Otherwise there wouldn't be any airplanes flying. So they determined I should be a linguist, and as it worked out, I became a Russian linguist. Went to Syracuse University.
And was immersed in the language.
Immersed. We went to class 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, all in Russian, and did that for 6 months. And after that, we're sent out to our assignment.
And your post was Alaska, where it was 20 degrees above or below zero all the time. And how in the world do you keep from having idleness is the devil's workshop over there?
Well, you know, that was not a problem. While our work shifts were typically an 8-hour shift, we'd work, as I recall, 6 shifts, 6 days or nights, as the case may be. We would rotate shifts in a row, and then we'd have 2 days off. Well, during those off hours and those off days, we had recreational activities we could avail ourselves of, such as pool and ping pong.
Ice fishing.
Well, we didn't do any ice fishing.
Mountain climbing.
We did a little mountain climbing. We hiked around the area. But also, I learned to play a guitar at that time.
Yeah. And I've got to come back to that guitar story later on. Again, when we talk about Pollyanna, so
Right.
we'll hold that. But you just out of the clear decided you wanted to learn to play the guitar.
Yeah.
But then the other story that I loved was that you and your brothers loved your mother and daddy so much and knew how much they had given to you. So your dad, now that he had all 3 boys out, decided to go for his first love, teaching.
Yes.
And he needed a car. And so you 3 boys decided that you would buy him a new used car.
Right.
And that meant you had to make monthly payments.
Correct.
So opportunity jumped up again and said, okay, if you make these monthly payments, you got to have some extra income coming in. So you had an opportunity to be the barber at Alaska.
I wish you wouldn't remind me of that. That was a one-time bad event. But yes, I did. On this remote outpost that we were sent to, St. Lawrence Island, which is a little bitty place right in the middle of the Bering Strait between Nome, Alaska, and Siberia.
Oh, God.
There were no civilians there. The only people there were
the
the
government
military
people
guys
that were listening for communications between the
Exactly.
Russians.
And
because
so-
Russia was just not far.
Well, yes, and in that day and time, the concern was that Russia would attack the U.S. and would come over the North Pole, and so we were listening for that kind of activity and reporting back what we heard. But they, during the off hours, they had one airman designated to be the base barber. Well, he shipped out about the time I got there, so they were actively recruiting someone, and as you said, I needed to make some extra money, so I volunteered. Well,
That was a fiasco.
the officer in charge of the place who had actually recruited me to do that volunteered to be my first patient, may I say.
And it didn't work out.
Oh, I
We're going to
believe-
have to take a break now. We're going to come back in just a minute and we'll finish this story.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.